The story begins with a man seated at his desk, writing. He wonders why, in a world governed by swords and magic, he must still be hounded by something as inefficient and mundane as paperwork. Even here, he realizes, there is no escaping it. The man is Ragna Brave, a noble of the frontier. Most of the people living in his mansion have already died in battle. Ragna calls for Sebas. When Sebas arrives, Ragna notes that his timing is convenient and intends to ask for help. However, the butler responds that, even if Ragna is the lord, such tasks remain the responsibility of the new head of the territory. This frontier land, the Brave Territory, is infested with monsters, and small conflicts with neighboring countries occur frequently. It is a harsh environment, and because of such conditions, other nobles refer to it as a land abandoned by its peers. Sebas comments that he never expected anyone in Ragna's family to be capable of handling paperwork. It is a surprising discovery. Ragna's father and older brothers had all been warriors, after all. Because of that, Ragna, third son of the noble family, was trained exclusively to kill monsters and enemy soldiers. But 1 month earlier, his entire family perished in the war, leaving him the sole survivor. He was suddenly forced to inherit this frontier territory. Ragna throws aside his documents in frustration, feeling that at this rate he would prefer diving into dungeons. As the third son, he had planned to live freely as an adventurer anyway. But Sebas rejects this notion and reminds him that another obligation remains. The Brave Territory holds abundant natural resources and a wealth of monster materials, attracting many adventurers. Because of this, businesses catering to wanderers flourish. Yet whenever they attempt to develop the mountain range, monsters appear and destroy that progress. Whenever they attempt to cultivate fields, enemy nations burn them. As a result, the territory has no means of becoming self-sufficient and relies entirely on support from other nobles. For that reason, Sebas insists that, as the heir, Ragna must attend the academy in the royal capital. There, he must ingratiate himself with the other nobles and request support for his land. Ragna questions whether he is capable of fulfilling such a role. He wonders aloud whether, given his family's focus on martial training, he truly has no option to refuse enrollment. Sebas insists refusal is not possible. Ragna then asks what else Sebas needs from him. Sebas explains that there is an important matter concerning him. A marriage proposal has arrived. Ragna is surprised and finds the timing abrupt, but Sebas notes that such affairs are not unusual for a lord. Ragna reflects that his brothers also had fiancées, though none of them ever settled in this hated land. In truth, Ragna knew that his brothers' fiancées had never even attended their funerals. When he had gone to inform them of the deaths, they had seemed relieved rather than mourning. As he continued writing, he wondered whether he should put an end to the matter entirely. At that moment, the pen in his hand snapped. Sebas found his thoughts unacceptable, for it was clear Ragna intended to discard the matter entirely. Ragna questioned whether Sebas understood his situation. From now on, he would be living in a dormitory in the royal capital, far from the territory. During extended holidays, he would return to manage the land and shoulder the responsibilities of governance. In short, he would be unbearably busy. He instructed Sebas to decline the proposal on his behalf and handed over the broken pen. But Sebas refused, for this particular proposal came from the Oldwood ducal family, an influential house that supplied the Brave Territory with weapons and food. The revelation stunned Ragna. He asked Sebas to confirm the noble rank involved, and Sebas clarified that the other party held the rank of O, rendering the match entirely feasible. Ragna paused as the name resurfaced in his memory. The Oldwood family. In that instant, he remembered the truth of his existence. The trigger had come long ago, when he was struck by an orc and fragments of his former life surged back. Until then, he had somehow forgotten that he had been reincarnated into this world, one he recognized not as reality, but as a game. Even now, he could not remember its title, only that in his past life he had enjoyed the culture of a country known as Japan. The game he had played was the very world he now inhabited. It was the world of an otome game. Its protagonist, a commoner, attended an academy filled with nobles and developed a romance with one of several potential love interests. A standard premise. Yet the battles within the game grew incessant, and by the final stages, the royal capital had transformed into a battlefield. The game itself had been notorious for its flaws. As he played, Ragna had often voiced his frustration, remarking whenever the same woman appeared and disrupted the events. That woman was Alicia, daughter of the Oldwood family, the Villainess. Groomed from birth to become queen and fiancée to the crown prince, She possessed flawless beauty and unparalleled talent. But her personality was abysmal. Overwhelmingly elitist, she arrived daily with her entourage to torment the protagonist. As the protagonist grew closer to the prince, Alicia's harassment escalated. Eventually, that conflict culminated in a duel over the prince, ending in Alicia's utter defeat. Her engagement was revoked on the spot. Ragna recalled that after this disgrace, Alicia had been forced to take responsibility by marrying a frontier noble. It was then that realization struck him: the frontier noble's house in the game was his own. His family's house. Later, as he lay in his bed, the weight of this fate pressed upon him. If he were destined to live under the same roof as that notorious noblewoman, life would become unbearable, hellish, even. He imagined endless verbal abuse, day after day. They would both be attending the academy, and the thought filled him with despair. A knock came at his door. Sebas informed him that the lady would soon arrive. As Ragna donned his coat, he wondered what purpose a young woman raised for the crown prince's side would have in visiting their remote domain. The only plausible explanation, he decided, was that she was being cast away, discarded like a nuisance and made an example of. The Brave territory carried a high mortality rate, and after the war, the surviving residents toiled relentlessly to sustain what remained of the Brave family. Sebas reminded Ragna that he too must fulfill his role, and Ragna acknowledged this grim obligation. Outside the mansion, Ragna and Sebas waited in silence until a carriage approached. Ragna's expression hardened into something unreadable while Sebas stood stoically at his side. Alicia stepped down from the carriage with the assistance of her butler. As soon as she lifted her gaze toward Ragna, he noticed the mark on her face, something he had never expected to see. Sebas, acting immediately, struck Ragna lightly on the back and formally announced that presence. Alicia observed them quietly, noting that even Ragna reacted visibly to the disfigurement upon her face. Ragna sought an explanation, but Alicia offered none, remaining wordless. He told her that if she preferred not to speak of it, he would not press her. In the Brave territory, he remarked, injuries of that nature were common. His remark caused Alicia's eyes to widen as she sought clarification. Ragnar explained that the soldiers and adventurers in this land were often covered in scars. He assumed the burn upon her face had come from the duel, the scar so large that it marred her once flawless beauty, branding her with shame. Anyone would recoil at first sight. Alicia sank into thought, distant and withdrawn, while her butler called for her attention. He then informed her that he would take his leave. Ragna noticed that no maids or attendants remained with her, unusual for the daughter of a ducal house. When the carriage finally departed, Ragna quietly observed Alicia, who now stood alone, unmoving. The smallness of the carriage, the single piece of luggage, and the absence of attendants made her position painfully clear. She carried herself with the air of someone who had surrendered everything, like a captured soldier awaiting an uncertain fate. Sebas guided her inside, and she followed without resistance. Ragna felt a subtle dissonance. This was not the behavior he had expected. In his mind, he had imagined the arrogant, domineering Villainess who trampled over others, yet the woman before him seemed subdued, hollow, and nothing like the tyrant he remembered from the game. Inside, Ragnar informed her that he would show her to her room. As they walked, something caught his attention, and he paused, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder to retrieve whatever it was before she could notice. Alicia assumed it was dust from her old clothing and apologized, but Ragnar dismissed the notion with a small laugh, assuring her the territory was far dustier. She accepted his words with a quiet nod and continued walking. Ragnar glanced at what he had taken. It was a demon bug, an entity formed from concentrated malice, a curse given shape. Those who were infested with them often never regained a normal life. To his shock, he realized Alicia was burdened by nearly 100 of them. The quantity reflected the sheer volume of hostility directed toward her by others. Under such a curse, a normal person would have long since collapsed mentally or physically. Yet Alicia remained composed, neither hysterical nor sick, as though this burden had become her natural state. Ragna felt his understanding shifting. He considered the upbringing she must have received. Trained from childhood to become a queen, molded for the role of the crown prince's consort. Would such a woman truly engage in the childish spectacle of challenging a commoner to a duel? The dissonance grew sharper, and he realized his assumptions, based on the flawed game he remembered, might have been only a fragment of a far more complicated reality. This was the world of an otome game. In such stories, an antagonist was essential to heighten the drama, And it was for that very purpose that Alicia's entire existence might have been distorted, reshaped to satisfy the narrative's need for conflict. The world itself had twisted her, binding her to a role she could never have escaped. Ragna recognized that both of them were struggling within a fate they had not chosen, carried along by the momentum of a script neither of them had written. He knew Alicia's future well. Even after her engagement was revoked, she continued to cling to her hatred. Eventually, she forged a contract with a demon, deforming herself into a monster. She met her end, yet her revenge consumed the brave territory. In every possible route of the story, this land was swallowed by war and wiped from existence. Ragna considered himself an anomaly, someone who had never appeared in the game. Which meant somewhere along the branching lines of fate, Alicia would eventually cross paths with him as well. It was a terrifying prospect. Alicia and himself, both victims dragged by the current of their predetermined destinies. If things continued as they always had, his land would meet the same fate it was destined for. He acknowledged the truth. No matter how fiercely he struggled, destruction awaited. His territory was doomed. However, scratching the back of his head, he decided that if everything was going to collapse anyway, then he would at least try to help Alicia reclaim her path and rise again. If doom was inevitable, then he would prefer to face it alongside someone capable of smiling again. And even if misfortune occurred while they walked this path together, if monsters, curses, or worse came upon them, he would simply destroy those threats himself. He crushed another demon bug beneath his heel, its form dissolving into nothing. In that moment, Ragna resolved to resist this twisted world. Alicia glanced toward him, sensing something, though she did not understand the turmoil he carried. She quietly asked what occupied his mind. He dismissed it with a gentle smile and stretched his arm, masking the resolve that hardened within. Internally, he vowed to do everything he could. Alicia watched him silently. She wondered how long it had been since someone had offered her such an unguarded, carefree smile. In the depth of her heart, long overlooked, long neglected, something small and fragile began to take root, unnoticed by all. Alicia had been living in the Brave household for 5 days. During that time, she had shown no signs of lashing out or speaking ill of anyone. She simply consumed the meals delivered to her and otherwise secluded herself within her room, emerging for nothing. Her presence was quiet to the point of vanishing, a stark contrast to the infamous Villainess Ragna once knew from the otome game's narrative. Ragna, on the other hand, spent his days relentlessly exterminating demon bugs. That persistence was maddening. Demon bugs could be propelled toward distant targets using magic, and it was clear that someone, somewhere, was sending them toward Alicia with malicious intent. They multiplied endlessly, clinging to surfaces and shadows with insidious tenacity. Sebas entered the room and remarked on the hard time Ragna was undoubtedly having. Ragna, irritated, asked whether Sebas could see the insects as well and demanded assistance, overwhelmed by their numbers. The idea that he should simply track the direction from which they were being launched and eliminate the sender crossed his mind, but Sebas immediately warned him that such an act would create a commotion severe enough to dissolve the Brave household entirely. More pressing, Sebas reminded him, was the necessity of tending to Alicia's heart, the very source attracting the demon bugs. Ragna scoffed, declaring such an idea absurd. The Brave family specialized only in battle. What meaning did emotional care hold for a family forged in war? Furthermore, Alicia was the first girl his age he had ever interacted with, leaving him unaware of what even constituted a normal youth. Sebas reassured him that things would turn out fine, though Ragna remained unconvinced. The following morning, someone knocked on Alicia's door. It was Ragna, announcing that breakfast had been prepared. He recalled hearing that the academy hosted social events such as tea parties, and he reasoned that sharing meals together might be a suitable imitation, an opportunity to form a connection. Continuing to knock, he insisted on the virtues of a morning meal, encouraging her to join him. The door abruptly swung open with such force it nearly broke from its frame, revealing Alicia already awake. Ragna smiled with relief, inwardly reassured she had not done anything drastic. Later, they sat together at a small table. Alicia observed that with such rough knocking, the door might have broken entirely, but Ragna, unfazed, remarked that repairs was something he had grown proficient in. She was taken aback that a noble would concern himself with manual labor, but Ragna dismissed the matter, urging her instead to enjoy the breakfast and coffee prepared for her. Alicia examined the coffee before cautiously tasting it. She immediately coughed, taken by its bitterness. Ragna, startled, asked what troubled her, and Alicia apologized, admitting it was her first experience drinking coffee. Back home, her household served only tea. Ragna realized that in their impoverished frontier land, tea was prohibitively expensive, and he apologized for being unable to provide it. Alicia assured him there was no need for concern. To help, Ragna added sugar to her cup. Alicia stared at the newly sweetened mixture, inhaled its aroma, and concluded she could drink it this way. Ragna gently warned her not to consume such a beverage before bedtime, lest she lose sleep. Afterward, the two continued their breakfast, a quiet atmosphere settling between them, neither tense nor uncomfortable, but unfamiliar, as though they were both carefully learning how to exist beside someone who had never belonged to their world. Alicia watched Ragna curiously as he continued eating. The meat he held came from monsters, a staple of the brave family. Ragna reflected that the boys of his lineage were essentially raised on such food. It was not poisonous, provided one began consuming it from a young age. The flavor left much to be desired, but in times of war, monster meat became a crucial source of sustenance. Alicia's gaze shifted, suddenly fixated on him. She wondered why he went to such lengths alone, why a noble of his standing took on the tasks of the household himself. Ragna thought of the truth. The brave household was short-handed, and even the servants were expected to fight if required. Most of them had perished in battle. It was a harsh reality, one that Alicia absorbed in silence, the weight of it mirrored in her expression. Ragna continued, acknowledging that in the brave family, a defeat without death was not considered a loss. Honor came from survival, from rising again after falling. Then, standing, he moved close enough to touch Alicia's hair with a careful hand, noting how remarkable she was. Here, scars were not hidden or shamed, they were proof of survival. Ragna revealed his own, pulling his hair back to expose the jagged marks along his head, a habit carried over from inspecting soldiers' wounds. The scars were symbols of endurance, silently demanding recognition. After straightening, Ragna gestured toward the outdoors, inviting Alicia to walk with him. Despite the disorder of the territory, the natural beauty remained abundant, unspoiled by human conflict. In the face of mountains and sky, wars and grudges seemed small, almost insignificant. Alicia, observing the grandeur of the landscape, agreed to follow, curious to see the land more fully. They ascended into the Udana mountain range, a vast stretch of peaks and valleys bordering the brave territory. Rare plants and minerals thrived here, hidden from the eyes of those in the royal capital. The scale and depth of the mountains surprised Alicia, who had expected a simple walk through a settlement or a town. Ragnar observed her reaction with quiet amusement. There were no markets or luxury goods here, only the rugged life of adventurers and monster hunters. He reflected on the frontier's harsh reality. The only entertainment beyond survival was gambling. He recalled rumors of wagers placed on his father's death in battle, and the thought of someone profiting from such tragedy was bitter. At that moment, Alicia's expression grew worried, and Ragnar quickly apologized, thinking this was not the kind of story he should be telling a lady. Alicia told him it was all right, thinking that if this was normal here, she had to accept it. Ragna noticed her effort, remembering how she had done the same with the coffee. Even in a land she did not know, she was trying hard to adjust. He suggested they take a short break. While looking at the river, Alicia went to get some water and drank it. She was surprised by how good it tasted. Because the Udana mountain range had high altitude and little evaporation, they could enjoy clean, natural water. Watching her, Ragna thought that this kind of clarity was something she would never find in the royal capital. Ragna then reminded her that although this land was harsh and difficult to accept, understanding it little by little made it easier to endure. She agreed. He explained that both enemies and allies lived on the same earth, and one should never look down on any of them. To survive, they had to understand others deeply and be prepared. It was the teaching of the brave family. He had heard a proverb with the same meaning from a distant world. In this land, people decided everything for themselves based on their own understanding, and they fought to protect it. Alicia said she understood and that she had seen the faces of the people living here. This place was not like the rumors described. After long reflection, she thought that the people of the brave territory simply did not laugh. But Ragna believed laughing was fine. This was a place where people risked life and death for entertainment anyway. He then told her to shake everything off and keep going because their destination was close. He jumped onto a rock, looked back at her, and reached out his hand to help. He reminded her not to laugh, then told her to laugh, leaving her unsure of what he meant. She took his hand and thought he was a strange person. Later, they reached the top of the mountain. Alicia was amazed by the view, and they could see the entire town clearly. She was impressed. Ragna told her this was his favorite place. It might have looked like an ordinary view, but he liked it. While preparing food, he guessed she must be hungry after all the walking and suggested a light snack. Alicia asked if she could ask him something and addressed him formally as Lord Ragna. He told her she did not need to use honorifics. She replied that she was also not used to being spoken to with polite language and that he did not need to use it with her. Ragna gave a small laugh, and Alicia treated the matter as something minor. He admitted she was probably right. When she called his name again, she looked at him closely and pointed out how he always worried endlessly, made a choice, accepted whatever would happen, and yet still ended up regretting it when he could no longer avoid the moment. She wanted to know what he did then. Her gaze made him remember something. He wondered if time could really solve such things, or if that was only a comforting answer people told themselves. He thought that choosing one side always meant losing the other, and anything lost like that could never be recovered. Alicia then wondered what someone should do if nothing was left at all. She said she had lived her entire life for a single purpose, and if she lost that purpose, then nothing would remain. She believed that as a duchess, she had already died, and that was why she had come to this forsaken land. Realizing what she had said, she quickly apologized to him. While looking at her, Ragna noticed a number of demon bugs around. He wondered if it truly was impossible to cut off these lingering feelings. Then he remembered what his butler once told him, that he was clumsy, but he always faced things honestly, and that being himself would be enough. With that in mind, he clenched his fist, called to Alicia, and told her that from now on, he would protect her always. She was shocked and confused. He explained that even if the duchess she used to be no longer existed, she was now part of the Brave family, and because of that, he was making her a promise to protect her no matter what. Alicia let out a small laugh, thinking he sounded completely unused to saying such things. He admitted he had even practiced delivering a cool, heroic line for this moment and had done some mental training for it, though it was embarrassing and he felt it had been wasted. But she looked at him and told him she didn't dislike it, that it was direct and easy to understand. Seeing her expression, he felt she might indeed be overthinking things. She then told him that if he returned to the academy with her, he would face a lot of hostility and malice. She asked if he would still protect her even then. He smiled, saying he was good at handling that kind of thing and that she could leave it to him. She smiled back. Ragna then glanced behind him with a grin and shouted a question, asking if Onyx had seen that. Alicia was startled. A huge dragon appeared, answering him, saying he had witnessed the vow. Shock filled Alicia's eyes. Ragna introduced the black dragon as Onyx, his friend. Alicia collapsed onto the ground from shock. Ragna had intended for the dragon to witness the promise, but instead he found Alicia lying there. He called out to her, while the dragon commented on how weak she must be as she fainted. And so that first date came to an end, filled with challenges, and finishing with a dramatic twist. The next day at the house, Alicia called Ragna over and questioned him about what happened yesterday. Ragnar answered that he thought making a vow in front of a dragon sounded romantic. She pressed him again, wanting to know what that dragon even was. Ragnar asked if she meant Onyx, and explained that Onyx was a dragon living deep inside the mountain range. He felt relieved because, thanks to the dragon's blessing, the demon bugs had disappeared. Alicia became confused and asked why Ragnar seemed so calm. Ragnar recalled what Sebas told him earlier that day, that he had once challenged Onyx to a one-on-one fight that ended in a draw, which made the dragon acknowledge him. Ragnar admitted he had nearly died, but he thought it was fine because they managed to negotiate. Alicia then felt embarrassed, thinking she must have looked foolish for panicking in this place. A maid suddenly reassured her, saying they themselves were always shocked when they first came here, and another person added that eventually nothing would surprise her anymore. Alicia looked around and noticed everyone was busy with paperwork. She reached out her hand and asked Ragna to lend it to her. Ragna was confused and said that even with his knowledge of modern society, this amount of work would take quite some time, but he told her it was fine as long as it was not too much trouble for her. Alicia then called Sebas to bring her the pass documents, and Sebas agreed. She started working through the paperwork and commented that one of the shops had a strange flow of money. She focused and continued helping with the documents. When she finished, she said that most of it should be sorted out now. Sebas praised her, saying she was very capable and that it was no wonder people called her a talented woman. Ragna thought that modern times must be lacking basic education. Watching Alicia, He felt that when the demon bugs were not attached to her, she could smile like an ordinary girl. Later, Alicia watched everyone doing their tasks, the maid cleaning the windows and the man taking care of the garden. Then she told Ragna that she would help clean the mansion after this. Everyone was shocked, and the maid hurried to stop her, saying she could not allow Alicia to go that far. But Alicia insisted, saying that right now she was a servant of the Brave family as a human, and that were things she had never done until now that she wanted to experience. The maid and the other workers called out for her to wait. Sebas and Ragna watched them. Ragna thought she was a good child, and Sebas told him that they should also do their best. Sebas added that he would harden his heart and had already left part of the work for Ragna. Ragna could only respond in exasperation. Then he suddenly noticed something strange. The price at one of the weapon shops was unusually high. It was exactly the day Alicia had arrived. It seemed the people running the shop had come from the royal capital and had opened the store here. They were acting like nobles, showing off items as rare treasures only available in the capital. But here, weapons were consumables, so they probably would not make much money from this kind of business. The likely intention of the intruders was to keep a close watch on Alicia. Sebas asked Ragna what he planned to do, and Ragna decided he would deal with them himself. That night, Ragnar observed several houses and shops, recalling Sebas's warning that skilled individuals might be present. Sebas had heard this from a nearby adventurer who had reported becoming angry at their arrogant way of doing business and had tried to steal something valuable. The adventurer explained that his right arm was cut off before he could even see the sword's movement, showing the danger of the rough adventurers in the area. Against such opponents, even without drawing a sword, they could sever an arm with ease. It was clear that a magician was involved. This world was overflowing with magic essence, and those who could manipulate it freely were called sorcerers. During the war, the ones who suffered the most were those facing enemy magicians. Ragnar realized that their true target was Alicia. Determined to act, he kicked open a door, confronting a group of men. They recognized him as Ragnar Brave, questioning his presence. He accused them of sneaking around and snooping. The men laughed, drew their swords, and advanced. One of them commented that, if Ragnar was silenced without being caught with weapons, that would be no problem. They attacked, calling Ragnar naive, but he fought back fiercely, punching and kicking them into walls. Suddenly, a hooded man clapped his hands in admiration, noting Ragnar's youth and strength. Ragnar immediately recognized him as the magician. The magician asked after Alicia, speaking mockingly about her being affected by his demon bugs. Ragnar, angered by the mention of the constant attacks, quickly struck the magician in the chest. He recalled how the magician had sent swarms of demon bugs day after day. Ragnar resolved to teach him a lesson, thinking of Alicia, who now lived freely, loved by everyone in the estate, skilled at her work, and smiling genuinely. In response, the magician summoned a praying mantis that immediately attacked Ragnar. He continued, disbelieving that Alicia could live freely and happily, claiming that he had sent his feelings and influence to her every day, trying to make her resent everyone around her. A continuous curse lingered. Before the magician could leave, Ragnar struck him along with the praying mantis he had summoned. The magician cast a spell, but to his surprise, it caused no damage, and he could not cut Ragnar's arms. Ragnar declared that everything the magician did was useless. First, he avenged the adventurer whose arm had been cut, striking the summoned creature. Then he punished the magician for sending countless pests. Ragnar stepped on the man's leg, offering to spare his life if he revealed who was behind the attacks. The magician mentioned igniting the Duke's family, and Ragnar understood, silently acknowledging it. He swung his sword, punishing the magician for the trouble caused to Alicia. The magician lay on the floor, repeatedly claiming he would curse Ragnar, but Ragnar smiled, knowing he was already cursed. Sebas soon arrived and asked if the situation was resolved. Ragnar requested that he clean up the aftermath, and Sebas agreed. Ragnar then asked Sebas a question about keeping Alicia close when they went to the academy. He explained that it was not about anything inappropriate, but that he wanted to be within range to protect her if something happened, and trusting Sebas with this responsibility. Sebas agreed. Later, Ragnar reflected that this was the first time he had gone so far since avenging his father. He wondered when his heart had begun to stop feeling, and while walking, he questioned whether he would be able to fit in at the academy. Meanwhile, Alicia read, thinking about whether her preparations were sufficient. She considered the things about the academy she needed to make sure Ragnar knew. With unspoken feelings for each other in their hearts, the night grew deeper. A few months later, Alicia mentioned that they would depart for the royal capital the next day. She felt regret that she couldn't harvest the daikon radishes in time. Despite being considered a villainous noblewoman, Alicia worked diligently in the garden on her own. The resources that were once reserved for higher education had all been redirected to household chores, which led to the growth of a remarkably talented woman. Later that day, a maid cried while urging Alicia not to go, saying that attending the academy should be left to the young master. Another maid reassured her that it was perfectly fine for Alicia to remain at the mansion. Sebas noticed the difference in how she was treated. One of the maids presented Alicia with a collar that the young master had worn as a child, explaining it could be used to reprimand Sebas if he misbehaved. As the carriage began to move, a butler joked that if anything happened to Alicia, Ragna would have to mop the floors as punishment. Another called out to the young master to take care not to catch a cold and to eat his vegetables. Alicia chuckled and remarked to Ragna that he was truly loved by everyone, feeling a touch of envy. This journey marked the first time in Ragna's life that he had traveled outside his own territory, and he silently remembered everyone who had cared for him. Upon reaching the mountains, the porter pointed out that the royal capital was now visible. Alicia remained still, her hands trembling, saying nothing. Ragnar observed this and, though he found it pathetic, asked for a favor. When they arrived at the station, could she show him how to buy a ticket and ride the train? Alicia giggled, and he scolded her for laughing. She assured him it was fine, reminding him that it was his first outing. She suggested putting a collar on Ragnar to prevent him from getting lost, but he declined, silently questioning what kind of game this was. As they entered the city gates, Alicia guided him through the capital. Ragnar looked around and realized that in the royal capital Ether, over 1 million people lived, all protected by a barrier said to have been created by an ancient sage. In Ragnar's mind, the city contained only a few monsters and had seen no wars, which explained why so many people gathered there. Compared to the brave territory, the city felt cramped. They walked through the streets, exploring and trying out some of the food. Ragnar asked if the dormitory was within the school grounds, and Alicia confirmed that there were separate dormitories for boys and girls. He was relieved to hear this. When they arrived, Alicia introduced the dormitory they would live in. Ragnar was surprised at how shabby it was and how far it was from the school. Alicia handed him a letter from Sebas and read it aloud. The letter suggested that living in a rundown dormitory and facing public humiliation would convince the novels opposing his return. Sebas had apparently spread the word to various places. Ragna noted that while it was inconvenient in some ways, it could also be convenient if no one was around, though cleaning would still be necessary. Alicia mentioned she might grow vegetables in the courtyard. The letter indicated that Ragna's room contained certain items for his use. He crushed the letter, and Alicia looked at him, prompting him to quickly shake his head. The letter emphasized that the young master's main task was to ensure that he and Alicia lived together. He needed to pass the exam to enter the same upper-class level as Alicia. Ragnar reflected that even if he passed, the academy they were attending, Ethanem Academy, was a place for almost all the novel children in the country. Classes were divided by rank. Those with the chance of marrying royalty joined the upper class, others went to the lower class. Exceptional magic or knowledge could allow even commoners to enroll under the status of descendants of sages. Ragnar imagined the large scale of the academy and the coming school life. They were just novels from a remote land and a villainess, but he had already set his resolve. If it became a contest of skill, he would show that they could win. The next day, he was called out for being late. The teacher scoffed at a noble from a remote land, making the upper-class teacher wait. Ragnar smiled and apologized, explaining he had gotten lost since it was his first time there. Dressed in his sportswear, he listened as the teacher commented on his slowness. As expected, Ragnar thought. The teacher announced that the first task would be a basic magic test, where Ragnar needed to shoot his maximum output at a target. He asked if there were any specific requirements for the magic. The teacher said there were no special requirements and urged Ragnar to begin. Ragnar assumed his stance, and the teacher muttered in frustration at having to examine him. When Ragnar unleashed his magic, the wall in front of him was completely destroyed, and the explosion damaged the walls behind it as well. The target lay in pieces on the floor, leaving the teacher shocked and questioning who this student was and what had just occurred. Ragnar asked if he had passed, but the teacher replied that more tests remained. The teacher handed Ragnar a wooden sword for the next test, swordsmanship. The rules was simple: if Ragnar defeated the teacher, he would pass. Magic was prohibited, and failure to continue fighting meant failing the test. Ragnar agreed, eager to finish quickly. The teacher, annoyed, called him a barbarian and attacked with his wooden sword. Ragna countered and struck the teacher, causing him to fall. Picking up his own sword, Ragna discovered that the teacher's sword contained iron, while his own was a normal wooden sword. It became clear that the teacher had intended to make him fail if he could not endure the fight. Amid the commotion, someone asked what was happening. Startled, Ragna looked toward the door and recognized the school principal, Vorza Grand Cascade. The unexpected encounter at the academy left uncertainty hanging. Would it turn out for the better or the worse? Volzia mentioned that today was the transfer exam and confirmed it. Ragnar recognized the school director, Vorza Grand Cascade, a sage from one of the ducal houses. Catching the attention of someone like Vorza could be troublesome. Volzia entered and observed the teacher lying on the floor, appearing deep in thought. He announced that Ragna had passed, surprising Ragna. Ragnar expressed gratitude and asked if it was truly okay. Volzia explained that there was only a small difference in bloodlines between the higher and lower ranks and asked if Ragna wished to join the upper class. Ragna hesitated, not feeling a strong desire to join, but mentioned he had someone to protect. Volzia accepted this and acknowledged Ragna's admission into the upper class. The teacher argued with the school director, pointing out that Ragna was from the Forsaken Lands and that his fiancée had caused an incident. Volzia called the teacher an idiot and asked about his role at the academy. The man admitted he was a teacher. The director instructed him to act like a teacher and guide students before trouble arose. The teacher apologized, leaving Ragna speechless. The school director allowed Ragna, as a special exception, to use a particular dormitory but reminded him to maintain proper and decent conduct as a student. Ragnar agreed. Later, as Ragna walked back, he reflected on the events and remembered helping the protagonist level up. He announced his arrival at home. Alicia ran to him, concerned for his safety and about what had happened at the academy. Ragnar reassured her and noticed her uniform, wondering if it was for a fitting. He found it cute but didn't mind. Ragnar told Alicia he had passed the exam. Though it wasn't an exam he desperately wanted to take, he had persevered and succeeded. Alicia, curious about Ragnar's magic, asked about it. He explained that he could use all basic magic but it was difficult to describe, and that he excelled at one particular thing. Alicia's stomach growled, creating an awkward silence, and she decided they needed dinner. She noted that starting tomorrow they would be busy at the academy and that they needed something nutritious. She ran off, with Ragna following and thanking her. He told her to inform him if anyone caused trouble at the academy. Alicia reminded him that using force was forbidden but expressed comfort in his presence. Ragna, blushing, acknowledged that she was probably stronger than him. In his mind, he admired her ability to endure mental pain, a quality even seasoned soldiers rarely possessed. He respected her self-awareness. The next day at school, whispers followed them. Some noticed Ragna's jewel scar, others commented on Alicia's beauty, and one whispered about her status dropping and made an inappropriate suggestion. That man suddenly fainted, startling his friends, while Ragna stayed calm, convincing himself to remain peaceful. Alicia whispered for Ragna to stop, and he pretended to be innocent. Later, in the lecture room, Ragnar reflected that he had only directed a small amount of killing intent. He wondered if everyone from the mainland was weak. He recalled that the protagonist in the final stage was supposed to awaken as a saint. The protagonist was a beautiful girl, as pure and clear as the blue sky. Ragnar tried to remember her name. Someone nearby mentioned it, Mariana Ocean. Mariana explained that the magic most frequently used by the sage had no attribute. To truly master this magic, one would need to reach the pinnacle of nothingness. Ragna then noticed a girl with glasses and realized that she was the heroine. The teacher said the answer was correct, even though it had been a trick question, and said this result was expected from the sage's pupil. Mariana adjusted her eyeglasses, but they suddenly slipped off and fell to the floor, cracking. Ragna wondered if she was truly the heroine of an otome game. Mariana murmured that her glasses were cracked again. Their classmates started whispering. One said this was already the fourth pair this month and called her a poor girl. Another said someone should switch seats with Mariana. Someone else added that Mariana had politely refused the offer before. In Ragna's mind, he questioned how someone with that appearance was supposed to begin a school romance with the prince. Mariana quietly said that if she had known this would happen, she would have chosen a seat closer to the front. One of their classmates offered to switch seats with her. Mariana insisted she was completely fine and said she would manage on her own somehow. She thanked the girl kindly for offering. The girl said she understood, if that was what Mariana wanted. The teacher called Mariana Ocean by name and said that during the next seat change, she would be assigned to the seat in front of the podium. Mariana frantically agreed and kept bowing her head, apologizing over and over. Ragna thought about Alicia, wondering who exactly she had been fighting. During the holidays, at that dormitory, he considered that he couldn't ask something like that. Men who dig up the past were absolutely no good. Suddenly something crashed onto the roof. Ragna moved his hand right away, and a barrier appeared, protecting Alicia from the falling debris. When he looked up at the hole in the roof, Ragna said the damage was terrible and he would have to repair it later. Alicia asked what the transparent thing was. Ragnar explained that it was a hidden barrier. Alicia was confused, so he explained further that the magic he was using was a transparent barrier with a holy attribute. It was the same type as the guardian barrier covering the royal capital. Alicia asked if he could cast magic without chanting. Ragnar said that it was useful in many ways. He said that the barriers people normally imagine are shaped like walls, but with chantless casting, Alicia suddenly panicked because Ragnar poured the kettle into empty air. Ragnar showed that he could do things like that. The coffee collected inside an invisible cup. He said the barrier could be formed into all kinds of shapes. Alicia was amazed and stared at the floating cup, full of awe. Watching her, Ragnar thought she looked very cute. Ragnar added that there were other differences too, such as the difference between ordinary barriers and the ones used in the royal capital. Alicia responded that maybe the difference was that Ragnar could choose what things to let pass through. Ragnar confirmed this. He explained that advanced barriers could be controlled freely to decide what to allow in and what to block. Alicia said it felt like they could do anything. Ragnar said there were still some things they couldn't do. He explained that, for example, once sugar or milk was mixed into coffee, the barrier couldn't separate what was already blended. Ragnar suddenly remembered something. Speaking of coffee, he realized they were out of Alicia's coffee. Alicia agreed, saying the beans she had brought with her had already run out. Alicia blushed and asked Ragnar if he was free later and if he wanted to go out. She said she knew a place that served delicious coffee. Later, while they were walking together, Alicia said the shop should be somewhere around the area. Ragnar asked where she got this information. Alicia explained that a friend had told her about it. Ragnar wondered if Alicia actually had friends in a situation like hers, and thought that it was just like her. Alicia said that one time, while she was studying in the library during lunch, someone spoke to her. That girl also seemed to like coffee, so they became friends, and that same girl told Alicia about this place. When Alicia saw the coffee shop, she announced that they had arrived. She pointed to it and said it was that place. Ragnar read the sign, which said Coffee Specialty Shop, Ocean. In his mind he thought, no way, could it be? They rang the doorbell. Suddenly Mariana came out and was surprised to see Alicia. Ragnar was shocked. Mariana commented that Alicia had been standing in front of the store just staring, and that she had started wondering what was going on. Mariana noticed Ragnar and said that he must be the one who really loves coffee. Alicia confirmed it and introduced him by name. Ragnar greeted Mariana. Mariana looked closely at him and said that he was in the same class as her. Alicia asked about that, and Ragnar said yes, although they had never actually talked before. Mariana suddenly became nervous and apologized, saying she could not believe someone of noble status would come there. She asked why Alicia was together with Ragnar. Alicia, confused, said that she also had a noble status, and that Ragnar was her fiancé. Mariana immediately lowered herself to the floor and apologized, saying she had failed to recognize their noble status and that it was unforgivable. Alicia was shocked. Mariana asked if she should be executed. Alicia protested that she would not be executed. Ragna wondered how the situation had turned into something so disappointing, considering Mariana was the main heroine. Inside the shop, Mariana apologized again for losing her composure. She flinched and touched her forehead. Alicia said she should be the one apologizing, but Mariana insisted that Alicia had done nothing wrong and that she had been the one who unexpectedly approached her. Mariana explained that she had simply been excited, thinking she might finally make a friend. When she had seen Alicia drinking coffee in the library, she had mistakenly assumed Alicia was a commoner like her. Ragna wondered about how, in this world, coffee was considered a commoner's drink, even though he enjoyed drinking it. Mariana explained that she had heard there would be 2 disciples of the sage this year, so she had simply assumed certain things. Ragna became confused, thinking about how, in the game, there was not supposed to be more than one. He wondered if there was another disciple. Alicia asked Mariana if she hadn't known about the commotion Alicia had caused. Mariana said she had heard about it and asked if that was the reason Alicia had been acting alone. Mariana added that she couldn't believe such a big incident had happened without her knowing. Ragna asked why she hadn't known about the uproar surrounding the decision. Mariana admitted that on that day, she had accidentally taken the wrong carriage to the academy. Ragna wondered why the carriage had gone somewhere else, and questioned whether it was a coincidence for such a thing to happen on the day of an important event, or maybe not. Alicia mentioned that people said Mariana was a genius at magic, but also that she was rather scatterbrained. Mariana said she was good at magic, but according to her parents, she was useless at everything else. Ragna asked about her parents. Mariana's eyes softened as she told them her parents had died a year ago due to illness. Alicia scolded Ragna, and Ragna apologized, saying he had been inconsiderate. Mariana said it was fine. She said the reason she was able to be there now was thanks to her parents. Mariana stood and asked both of them if they wanted some coffee. Since she had invited them, she said she still had not served anything. Later, Mariana prepared coffee and dessert for them. When Alicia tasted the coffee, she reacted with amazement at how delicious it was, surprised at how completely different it was from Ragna's. Ragna laughed awkwardly and agreed. In his mind, he thought about how they used the same beans, so he wondered what made his own coffee taste different. He recalled Seba's saying that his coffee was bitter, and he wondered if that was supposed to be a metaphor for his life. Ragna told Mariana that from now on he would call her his mentor. Mariana protested, and Alicia explained that he was only joking. Mariana blushed and said it was strange that the two of them, despite being nobles, were not scary at all. Ragna asked why she had such a strong fear of nobles. Mariana said it was only a faint memory, but a long time ago, a child from her neighborhood told her that if she ever went against nobles even a little, she would be killed. Around the same time, she had been hit by a noble's carriage, exactly as that child had warned. The people in the carriage showed no concern for her. Because of the accident, her eyesight had worsened. Her parents had heard that coffee could improve vision, so they began drinking it as a family, and before long, the whole family had become coffee fanatics. Looking at her coffee, Mariana quietly laughed at how rich it was. Alicia then mentioned that Mariana was good at magic. Mariana said yes, and explained that her strongest skill was recovery magic, the ability to heal people. Alicia looked toward Ragna and asked if that was extremely rare. Ragna said it was. In this world, very few people were able to use recovery magic on others. But in the game, the saint version of Mariana could heal any disease, drive out demons, and even regenerate lost limbs. Mariana said that a year ago she had been unable to save her sick parents. That was why she had studied so hard, so that if she ever had someone precious again, she would be able to save them. Alicia was moved by this and stood up to hug Mariana. Alicia noticed that there was still no other customers inside the shop. Then Ragna apologized, saying that he was the last one to enter, so he had closed the door when he came in. Alicia was shocked and grabbed his collar, telling him he was blocking the store's business and should open it immediately. Mariana said it was all right. She explained that lately she had been concentrating on her studies, so she had been closing the shop on holidays anyway. Later that day, Mariana thanked them for visiting. Alicia asked if Mariana was not going back to the dormitory. She said that if Mariana was a sage child, she would be exempt from various things. Mariana smiled and said no, she liked living in that house. She explained that she received living expenses and tuition fees as long as she achieved excellent grades, and that part of the dormitory fee support was being redirected to help maintain her home. Mariana told Alicia that if she ever had any problems at the academy, she should tell her. Alicia said that hearing those words alone was enough and thanked her. Mariana reacted in amazement, calling Alicia dazzling, and asked Ragna to hand Alicia over to her. Ragna refused immediately. Alicia wondered what the two of them were talking about. On the way back to their dormitory, Alicia said that Mariana was a good girl. She said that when she first saw her, she noticed that Mariana had the same eyes as Ragna, eyes that looked straight at her, eyes that were beautiful. Ragna said he understood, and that people with a strong core ended up like that. Alicia asked if Ragna had met someone like that before. Ragna said he had, and then he suddenly turned toward her with a smile. He said that eyes carrying a strong will, resisting fate, were beautiful and cute. Alicia blushed and reacted, asking what that was supposed to be, wondering if he was trying to act like a prince. Ragna replied that he was not really the princely type. A villainess and a commoner protagonist, Those two fated girls were supposed to continue fighting until one of them was destroyed. Yet now the two of them were having lunch together. Mariana was amazed at Alicia's mixed sandwich, saying it looked delicious. Alicia offered one to her. Up on the roof, Ragna looked down at them, thinking that harmony among friends was a wonderful thing, but also wondering how things had ended up like this. Meanwhile, Alicia wondered where Ragna had gone. As soon as break time began, he had disappeared somewhere even though he usually took his classes seriously. Ragna was thinking that now that Alicia was with him, someone who had been pushed into the wasteland, the criticism toward her would increase. He was fine with being a side character, but he wondered what kind of fate this was, where the protagonist and the villainous noble girl were getting along. Mariana, as a commoner, had lived her school life peacefully, but in the original game world, Alicia lost the duel and was sent to the frontier territory. In this current world, Mariana was not the one Ragna had to fight. If that was the case, then who defeated Alicia? Who was it? Ragna remembered something. The duel had originally been caused by the prince. He became curious about what was happening and decided he would investigate a little. Looking down from the rooftop, he found them. Several girls were calling out to Edward. He was Edward Gran Ethedem, the prince. The girls were asking him out. The prince rejected them kindly, saying he had a promise with someone. Edward was Alicia's former fiancé. His route in the game was known as the classic route, because he was the easiest opponent, almost as if the creators were telling players to start by beating him. He was basically the tutorial stage. If the story followed the game, then now he should be deepening his bond with the protagonist. The prince apologized to the person waiting for him. The girl said she had just arrived, calling him His Highness. From afar, Ragna was shocked and wondered who she was. The prince told Patricia that she should call him Edward instead of using his title. Patricia said she could never call him that and that she felt honored. Edward reminded her that before they entered the school, they first met in the castle town and she called him by his name back then. Patricia explained that at the time she did not know he was royalty. Edward said that the fact they had met again at the academy was fate. He held her hand and told her that since it was her, he wanted her to call him by his name, not his title. Patricia stuttered as she tried to say Edward's name, blushing and saying it was embarrassing. Ragna wondered about this Patricia. There had been no character with that name in the game. He questioned whether this girl had replaced Mariana and who Patricia truly was. Then 4 men arrived and called out to Edward. One of them said they were also present, telling Edward not to forget them. The one with glasses said he wouldn't let Edward get ahead of him. The third complained that Patricia was terrible for capturing all their attention. Ragna was shocked. All those men were romanceable characters. That meant this was a reverse harem. One of them said they should all have lunch together. One of the men moved close to Patricia, and Edward sighed in irritation, asking why they couldn't control themselves, saying Patricia must be having a hard time. Patricia said she was fine and explained that she had prepared extra food like always, asking if they wanted to eat together. Ragna muttered to himself, calling it reverse harem 101. Patricia was completely taking over the protagonist's position. And because this reverse harem situation was actually happening, it meant she had triggered all the romance flags for all the romanceable men. That was basically impossible on a first playthrough. All of those men were heirs or potential heirs to their families. They should all have fiancés. If it were only Edward, that might be one thing, but having multiple partners was extremely problematic. It would not even be surprising if someone mysteriously died under strange circumstances after graduation. Ragna decided that from now on, he had no intention of getting involved with the reverse harem group, but he realized there was one person he would need to watch carefully. It was exactly who he expected, Gelasis Gran Ignite. Gelasis said to the others that eating here together was easier than eating at the cafeteria. He was the second son of the Ignite family. Ragna could hear Gelasis calling Patricia a mysterious girl and asking if she knew that a magician had caused trouble in the brief territory. Ragna told himself to stay calm, because rushing in recklessly would be a terrible move. He remembered that Gelasis was a troublesome character. Gelasis had been born as insurance for the Ignite family's eldest son, who would inherit the family headship. As the child of a concubine, he had been raised in a complicated environment. His route in the game was dark and heavy. That was why he was a dangerous character who could change completely depending on the player's choices. Since the Ignite family had already targeted Ragna, one would think they would have encountered each other sooner, but they had not met even once. Ragna decided to leave it alone for now. His only wish was for Alicia to live a peaceful life and to prevent the possible ruin that could come in the future. To make that happen. But then a voice said that picking fights in that way was something he did not admire. It was the school director. Ragna went silent for a moment and warned the principal that it was dangerous to come up onto the roof. The principal said Ragna was the last person who should be saying that. Ragna wondered why Volzia had come. Ragna said that the timing was perfect, because that was something he wanted to ask. In his mind, he thought that the black roots in Patricia's natural blonde hair, combined with the impossible reverse harem situation, proved that she was definitely a reincarnated like him. Ragna asked the principal to tell him about the student named Patricia. Ragna asked the principal to tell him everything about the student named Patricia, her origin, her past, the magic she was good at, and anything else. The principal thought about the name Patricia Kindred and wondered what Ragna found so suspicious. He said he had no idea what Ragna was talking about. Patricia had been accepted after taking the entrance exam, and he had not done any secret manipulation. Ragna felt that something was suspicious. In his mind, the protagonist had been purposely separated during the incident. If this was Patricia's plan, then a noble must have helped switch the carriage, and the most likely one was the Ignite family. The principal understood why Ragna was being cautious, but said that since they did not know her purpose, it might be better to let her enroll rather than leave her unchecked. Ragna thought that this was probably true and said it would be nice to live peacefully. The principal reminded him that he was a student of the academy and had the right to enjoy his youth, and asked why he was living such a restricted life. Ragna answered that he was a noble from the Forsaken Lands, and that staying behind the scenes was best. In his thoughts, he only needed to endure 3 years. The principal asked if Ragna had forgotten the pride of the brave family. The blood of the brave naturally resisted even under harsh conditions, all the way to their final breath. He said he had always thought it was something that desperately held on, but wondered if Ragna's resolve was truly that weak. Ragna then punched toward the principal's face. The principal's body shone brightly. Students outside screamed and wondered what was shaking the ground. The wall behind the principal cracked. Ragna still kept his fist raised but had not actually hit him. He told the principal this was the situation the principal wanted, and he was simply acting according to it. If anything happened to Alicia, he would never forgive the principal, and he did not care if this was the principal's private garden. The principal accepted this and said that if this was what Ragna wished for, then he should prove it. He asked Ragna Brave if he believed in fate. Ragna wondered what kind of question that was. In his mind, fate? Was the principal talking about this terrible scenario? The principal spoke about Mariana Ocean, saying she was a child with a strong fate, but that this fate was now twisting on a huge scale and falling into madness. He said that in time, it would affect everyone in the academy who also had a strong fate. The country would likely be split between light and darkness. But at this moment, Mariana had no strength to resist at all. The principal asked Ragna to protect Mariana, who had lost her guardian. Mariana's destiny was not supposed to stay in this small world. It was meant to be somewhere else, in a different place. At the same time, Mariana said she was getting nervous. Ragna thought about the word protect and wondered how much Volzia actually knew. He asked Mariana if this was her first time entering a dungeon. Mariana confirmed it. Ragna thought about how the practical training dungeon was where students used the magic they learned in class. Even though safety measures were prepared, anyone who lowered their guard could get injured easily. Nearby, Patricia said she was scared as the prince held her. Edward told her it was fine and that he would protect her. Patricia thanked him and said she was weak. The other boys also said they would protect her. In Ragna's mind, the dungeon was really just a way to get closer to the conquest targets. Still, there was an important event hidden deep inside, the sacred relic. Ragna wondered what the fake heroine planned to do about it. Alicia arrived, apologized for making them wait, and said they should go. Mariana waved at Alicia with excitement. Ragna thought that Alicia looked like an adventurer hardened by battles. Mariana asked Alicia why she was so excited. Alicia explained that she was happy because it had been a long time since her last dungeon. A voice suddenly spoke, calling Mariana the damaged girl and saying a commoner was trying to cling to the academy by getting close to others. One of the followers agreed with Lady Ekaterina. Ragna recognized the girl as someone who used to stay near Alicia, the one with drill-like hair, Drillhead. Ekaterina smirked. Looking at Ragna's group, she insulted them, saying that even filthy monkeys from the slums were pretending they belonged, and now even peasants. She remarked that there was so many lowlifes gathered in one place. As she walked toward them, Ekaterina said that the academy was for refined nobles, and wondered if she should drive out filthy people like Mariana. Alicia spoke up and stepped in front of Ekaterina. Ekaterina questioned what her problem was. Alicia greeted her politely. Ekaterina responded with anger, asking how Alicia dared to act so proudly. She blamed Alicia for letting commoners run wild in the academy and called her a damaged failure. Alicia said that if Ekaterina hated her, she could hate her as much as she wanted because Alicia had done enough to deserve it. But Mariana had nothing to do with it. If Ekaterina had something on her mind, whether it was a duel or anything else, she could challenge Alicia. However, Alicia added that if Ekaterina chose to face the sage's disciple or Alicia herself, she was not confident Ekaterina could win. Ekaterina grew angry and said Alicia was getting full of herself just because she had gathered a group of monkeys. She said it suited Alicia and told her to spend her whole life drinking coffee. Alicia smiled and said she would drink it because she liked coffee. Ekaterina walked away angrily with her underlings, complaining that the smell of beans was unbearable. Alicia let out a sigh of relief. Ragna was amazed, thinking Alicia was strong. Alicia apologized, saying it was her fault they got dragged into trouble with a strange person. In Ragna's mind, this was why he understood why people ended up liking Alicia so much. He told her no, that she looked cool. Ragna smiled at Mariana and pointed out that Ekaterina had called Alicia a damaged person. He asked if he should kill them. Mariana smiled back and added that they also made fun of coffee. Alicia told both of them to stop. Inside the cave, Mariana looked around, thinking that this was the dungeon. She said that traps and monsters kept appearing one after another to greet them. Alicia wondered why they were the ones at the front line. Thinking of the person behind the situation, Ragna apologized and said it was probably his fault. Ragna was asking if the two girls were okay when something happened suddenly. Alicia reacted in alarm, but Ragna said he was fine as he pulled out an arrow. Ragnar explained that there was always a protective barrier formed just a few millimeters from his body. Alicia said it was an amazing skill. Ragnar added that if he ran out of magic power, attacks would break through. That magic had appeared long ago when he was close to dying. It came from the idea that if someone covered their whole body, they would not be afraid. From that idea, the barrier formed. Ragnar had been practicing it ever since, and now he could use it without even thinking about it. Mariana asked if the Brave Territory was really such a frightening place. Alicia said no, it was a very nice place, and that she would go back home with Ragna during the summer break. She asked Mariana if she wanted to come with them. Mariana said she would love to go. Ragna said it sounded like a good chance and suggested training in the mountains, calling it the Brave-style boot camp. He said that with this, everyone would be able to use chantless magic. Mariana excitedly said that Ragna was going to train her. Alicia told Mariana to do her best but not to kill her. Ragna told Alicia to leave it to him. A small dark dragon appeared in his hand and disappeared quickly. Mariana said that even so, it was still mysterious. She asked why the monsters were in the dungeon, and why the monsters inside disappeared into mist without leaving their bodies behind. It seemed that the dungeon was created by ancient sages. There were many mysteries, and it was fascinating. She said that if they took some of the wall's soil back, they might discover something. Alicia told her to wait, but Mariana had already hit the wall with her hammer. Suddenly, Mariana was standing in the center of a magic circle. Both Alicia and Ragna called out to her in shock, wondering if she had triggered something dangerous. When they called out to Mariana, Alicia and Ragna also jumped into the magic circle, and the three of them began to fall. Ragna caught both girls before they landed and placed them safely on the ground. Mariana looked around and asked where they were. Ragna thought the place looked familiar and guessed it was probably the lowest level. In his mind, Ragna thought it was unbelievable that they had triggered a teleportation trap. He felt it was just like the protagonist to do something like that. Mariana commented that the wall was impressive. She complained when Alicia took her pickaxe away. Alicia told her that personal safety was the top priority, and if she died here, she would never be able to drink coffee again. Mariana poured coffee into a cup and said it might be the last coffee of Alicia's life. She asked Alicia if she wanted some. Alicia questioned where Mariana had even gotten the coffee and why she was carrying it. Mariana explained that people said it was important to bring one's own food into the dungeon. Ragnar agreed that it was true. Alicia sighed, then said she would have some as well. Ragna also got some coffee. Ragna felt relieved that both girls were surprisingly calm. Usually, falling all the way to the bottom of the dungeon meant game over. No help would arrive, and the monsters could not be eaten. Alicia called Ragna and told him she was not trying to scare him, but the situation they were in was very dangerous. They had not been taught about a place like this in class, and they could not call for help. Alicia noticed how calm Ragna seemed and asked if he knew something. Ragna told her she would be fine and said there was something they could do. Once they caught their breath, they would go to the deepest part. Later, they started walking. Ragna thought about the magic circle. Alicia, the villain in the game, was someone who used such things, so he wondered who had done it this time. He stayed quiet for a moment, then told himself that they had no choice but to move forward. There was also a pendant deeper inside that was necessary for the route. In the deepest chamber of the dungeon, the sacred relic was lying dormant. It was an important item needed to save the country near the end of the story. Each character obtained it by following their own route. It was used for the Saint's awakening. They needed to collect it. Here, they only needed to defeat the golem in front of the door. There should be a teleportation magic circle nearby that led to the exit. Ragna could not tell them this. Instead, he told the girls that according to the records, defeating the guardian of the deepest level would allow them to return. Ragna thought about how tough that monster was and what a hassle it would be to defeat it. Alicia noticed something ahead. It was an enormous door. Mariana excitedly said it might be the exit. Ragna wondered why there was no golem guarding it. Mariana then noticed something beside her. It was a gigantic creature. It awakened, and Ragna shouted her name. He managed to grab her just in time. The monster laughed. Alicia pulled out her dagger and asked what the creature was. Mariana told Ragna that the magic power it emitted was incredible and felt like the sun. Ragna agreed. In his mind, he thought that to release this much magic power, it had to be a dragon, a Fenrir, or maybe even a demon, the being to whom Alicia entrusted her soul near the end of the story. He did not want to get too close to it and told the girls to step back. Ragna noticed that Alicia was shaking and unable to move. He looked at her. In Alicia's mind, the scene from before replayed, the moment when the match was decided. Patricia declared the winner. She heard the voices telling her she had lost to a commoner, calling her a disgrace to the Duke's family. They said she challenged herself only for it to end like this, calling her pathetic. Alicia held her forehead in pain. She saw Patricia calling out to her. Suddenly, Ragna held her face in his hands and told her to look at him. Alicia snapped out of her fear. Mariana moved to her side, and Ragna asked if the two of them could use Aqua Veil. He told them to stay where they were. Alicia asked what he planned to do. Ragna ran forward, saying he was going to kill the creature. The monster laughed. As he ran, he said the monster would take responsibility for triggering his fiancée's trauma. A wind swirled behind him. Ragna wondered if the monster had shrunk. The monster suddenly appeared and swung its glowing magic. It hurled the attack toward Ragna, but Ragna cut it in half with his sword. When he looked behind him, the monster swung its claw. The girls shouted to warn him the attack was coming from behind. Ragna reacted quickly and sliced off the monster's head. Mariana happily said that he had done it and cut the head off. Alicia disagreed. The headless monster stood back up and commented that its head had fallen. In an instant, its head returned to its body. Ragna said that something like that was not enough to kill it. The monster wondered aloud why that was and mocked Ragna to hit him again. Ragna accepted without hesitation. He dashed forward and pierced the monster's chest with his sword. He called the monster pathetic and said it was not even worthy of the lowest-ranked brave. He said the monster should not think it could outmaneuver him with such an unguarded defense. The monster said maybe he had been callous and told Ragna he was one to talk. Then it released scorching breath. The two girls called out as Ragna disappeared into the smoke. The monster told him to burn. But when the smoke cleared, Ragna was still standing. He asked the creature what was wrong. He said that compared to this, a fire dragon's breath was far hotter. The monster scoffed. Ragna then told the monster it would be helpful if it revealed who was inside. In his mind, Ragna thought that demons originally had no physical form. A human must have made a contract with it for personal desires. The monster only grinned at him in response. Ragna asked whose magic power it was. As his fingertips neared the monster's skin, the creature screamed. It self-destructed. The monster exploded. The Aqua Veil barrier protected the two girls from the blast, but Mariana said she could not hold on any longer. Ragna immediately rushed inside the barrier and supported it for them. When everything settled, Ragna wondered who had controlled the monster. Mariana asked if he was okay. Alicia noticed that his arm was burned. Ragna said it was only a scratch and nothing serious. He repeated that he would protect Alicia no matter what. Alicia remembered that pinky promise and thanked him. Ragna noticed she had calmed down and felt relieved. Alicia approached the broken part of the pit and asked what was wrong. Ragna said that during the fight he had seen a teleportation magic circle. It would let them return to the surface. The girls walked to the opening and saw the circle too. Ragna secretly held the relic behind him. The three of them began to shine as they entered the circle. In Ragna's mind, he memorized the feeling of the magic power. The next step was to find the main body. He would definitely kill that person. Someone coughing could be heard in the room. In the middle of the chaos of the dungeon training, the one controlling everything from behind the scenes was Gelasis. A person entered and complained that everywhere she looked was filthy. Patricia told Gelasis how pathetic he was. Gelasis glanced at Patricia. Patricia asked him if he had managed to recover the sacred artifact. Gelasis apologized and said he could not. Patricia slapped him and called him an idiot. She said it was truly the worst, and even though Gelasis was possessed by a demon, he still failed. Gelasis kept apologizing. Patricia asked what happened. Gelasis said he was interrupted by Ragna Brave. Patricia became angry and called Ragna a mob noble, someone who should naturally disappear as the story moved forward. That mob from the frontier. Patricia had been planning to turn Alicia into a villainess. It was Ragna's fault that the plan fell apart. The Edward route could no longer be used. Even the former followers were useless, even though their families had been blackmailed and they had been pushed into action. Gelasis said Patricia was bleeding and needed to heal it. Patricia told him to shut up and told him to take off his clothes. Later, Patricia calmed down. She asked Gelasis where he was injured. He pointed to his neck. Patricia held her hands over him and used magic. In her mind, she remembered his head being taken off in one strike. That person Ragna was the same as Patricia. How could he even do something like that? But if his circumstances were similar to hers, then it could not be helped. Next, since Gelasis had used self-destruction, his whole body. After that, Patricia told Gelasis that his defeat had been flashy. He had done a great job. She praised him. Gelasis was moved. He cried and thanked Patricia. Patricia smiled at him. Gelasis was a crybaby and a complainer, her adorable little brother. He had carried a demon inside him from the day he was born. A rare being, just like her. Gelasis called out to Patricia. Patricia told him that for now, it was fine if she acted as his big sister. He buried his face against her as he hugged her. Gelasis looked at her and called her big sister. He complained that Ragna was really strong. He could not defeat Ragna. Patricia fell deep into thought. In her mind, she thought that this child really was a crybaby. Gelasis had been the same from long ago. She called him and asked what he wanted. Gelasis stuttered and said he wanted Alicia. He wanted that girl. Even if he had to destroy Alicia, he wanted her for himself. He whispered that he would keep her chained. If he did that, they would be together forever. Patricia answered that in that case, Gelasis had to kill Ragna and take her, because right now Alicia belonged to Ragna. Gelasis tried to question it, but Patricia told him to believe in her. Gelasis was special. If he could keep going, his big sister would stay by his side. Patricia kissed him on the lips. She deepened the kiss. Gelasis felt a sudden rise of magical power and was shocked. He thanked her, saying he would do his best. He would definitely win next time. Patricia paused and told him that he had already won. He had been embraced by a cute girl and even kissed by her. Gelasis was surprised. He asked if that counted as a win. Patricia said it did. Those monkey-brain school kids lived for that kind of thing. She told him to try going back and he would understand. Looking down from the window, Patricia saw Ragna Brave. She wondered what his aim was in this scenario, in this stage. She did not know why Ragna had appeared, but if he got in her way, she would show no mercy. The glass she was holding in her hand cracked. In her mind, she cursed this world. She would carve her will into fate and into the world itself. Destruction was the choice she had made. In her eyes was a curse and firm determination. Following a certain conversation, Alicia mumbled about the details of the date. Mariana asked if that night she and Ragna had not walked through the city together, and what they had been doing. Alicia asked what she meant, and said it was nothing that important. As the girls talked, Ragna was behind them without their knowledge. In his mind, He regretted missing his chance to step in. He became curious if the girls were talking about a date. Alicia explained to Mariana that as she and Ragna walked, they had smelled grilled skewers. They tried street food for the first time together. Mariana was surprised. She was sure about Alicia, but learning that Ragna had experienced it too shocked her. That was unexpected. Mariana recalled that until recently, Ragna could not even ride a train. He was a little sheltered, or maybe just inexperienced with the world. He seemed hopeless with anything outside of combat. Listening to them, Ragna thought it was impressive that Mariana had figured him out. Mariana continued, noting that Ragna was truly mysterious. Alicia agreed, saying that was exactly what she had thought at first too. But now, he was quite cute. Ragna blushed at that. Alicia told Mariana that the other day, she had even taken the initiative to hold Ragna's hand and show him around the capital. Mariana was surprised that Alicia had been the one doing the escorting. Isn't it usually the other way around? Alicia said no, explaining that Ragna's perfect date plan was decided by rolling dice. The royal capital of Utahayumi could have turned into a sea of fire. Mariana reacted, wondering what kind of person could do something like that. Alicia remembered that first date, when Ragnar explained that the place had been burned by a dragon's breath, with signs of a drunkard's handiwork. Mariana asked if Alicia didn't want Ragnar to take the lead or anything. Alicia said it was fine, that she wanted to be equal with him, and that was why. Alicia then noticed that lunch break was almost over. She suggested that they return. Alicia stood up and started walking, leaving Mariana behind. Mariana mumbled to herself that she could understand why Ragna was head over heels. It was so cute. Ragna blushed.